Hello, thank you for joining us for our web seminar, Navigating Your Online Career Search. My name is Bonnie Johnson with agcareers.com. I will be serving as moderator for today's webinar. We are pleased to have Meredith Shepard as our presenter today. She'll explore the job market and how to navigate your online career search. Please allow me to introduce Meredith. She is a recruitment manager for DeLacy Executive Recruitment. She prides herself in building relationships with both the client and the candidate while making sure the right fit happens. Prior to her time with DeLacy, Meredith was a coordinator of prospective student services for the College of Education, Health, and Aviation at Oklahoma State University. Meredith holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from Oklahoma State University, an MBA from the University of Central Oklahoma, and a professional recruiter certification. I will now turn it over to Meredith.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hello, everybody, and welcome. As Bonnie said, my name is Meredith Shepard, and I'm a recruitment manager for DeLacy Executive Recruitment. I'm coming to you remotely from my home office in Oklahoma. At DeLacy, we specialize in recruitment in the agriculture and food industries, and I'm here today to talk to you about navigating your online career search. So much has changed in the past year, from wearing masks to online school and grocery pickup to digital interactions with friends. And while we are starting to get back to how it used to be, another place that has drastically changed is the workplace, and for candidates, the process to find a job. So today we're going to explore the job market and how to navigate your online career search. And you might be surprised to find what things have changed and those that have remained the same. During this webinar, I'll be covering COVID's impact on the job search process, the outlook in the ag and food job market, customizing your resume and getting your application through, top tips for online interviews and networking, and following up with employers in a virtual environment. So COVID's impact on the job search process. As we all know, everything is virtual, including the job search and the interview process. Prior to COVID, we were already applying to jobs online and having some virtual interviews, but now that's really the norm. As we've been easing back into reopening, so has the face-to-face interviews. For the most part, we've seen the first round of interviews still virtual. Typically, though, it's more video than phone, but a lot of the face-to-face interviews are starting to reemerge. With no surprise, work from home emerged as the new top approach to flex staffing solutions this year. Many jobs are being reinvented to embrace remote work or flex, and potentially they could stay that way forever. In regards to applications, we've seen a mass flooding of applications to open positions since COVID started. And while many of the applicants are not qualified, it's creating a lot of noise, which is why it's important now more than ever to be sure to stand out through your resume. The good news is agriculture and food are essential industries, and over the next 2 years, an increase in workforce size is anticipated by 51.25%. So what does working in agriculture really look like? There are a lot of preconceived notions, stereotypes, and misinformation circulating about agriculture and what type of careers are really out there. Almost 90% of agriculture and food jobs are not on farm. For each one person working on the farm, there are 9 people behind the scenes in supporting careers. As we become more productive and technologically advanced, these supporting careers have taken the lead. I've listed some in-demand careers and emerging careers here for you to review. But to highlight a few, typically sales roles are one of the most in-demand careers, but those can also be listed as account managers, brand managers, sales directors, product managers, etc. Marketing and communications is another in-demand career. Communication specialists and consultants have increased due to COVID, as well as emergency communications. Who considers themselves a social media expert? Maybe an influencer? Those interested in communications may consider narrowing down their career focus directly on social media. Since social media is constantly changing and the challenge of reaching users is increasing, employers will need to dedicate strategists to develop plans for improved engagement and to decipher analytics. public relations, technical writers, editors, market research, fundraising, specifically for the association's nonprofits, human resources, all are other emerging careers. And the reason why is the pandemic has greatly impacted workforce management, and they need communicators specifically in those roles. Customizing your resume and getting your application through. There are plenty of opportunities out there, but there are also plenty of ways to get lost in the shuffle electronically. Regarding online applications, here are some corporate examples. Google receives more than 2 million job applications per year. You have a 0.2% chance of getting hired. It's 10 times harder to get a job there than it is to get into Harvard. But we're not all going to work for Google or Amazon, but I can tell you the average corporate job opening attracts 250 applications. Only 25% of those resumes will be seen by a hiring manager because the computer hiring system or recruiter will screen out 75%, and then only 2% will get an interview. It can be crowded and competitive. So let's talk about how you can stand out in the virtual hiring process. Customizing your resume, getting your application through, one of the big things you will be surprised about is how many resumes recruiters or hiring managers receive that are saved only as resume.doc. I get them all the time. You want to save your resume and cover letter as a unique file name, like Meredith Shepard, June 2021, or Meredith Shepard Marketing, June 2021. This is going to prevent your resume from being lost with all the other files employers receive. It also is going to make things easier for the hiring manager. They can quickly locate and recognize your name. Plus, this is going to help you prepare for any conversations or interviews where you might need to revisit your application materials. It'll also help you to quickly recognize the newest version of your resume that you have saved. You also want to customize your resume towards the employer job. This is critical. Generic resumes won't cut it. You need to stand out with keywords. Just like when you are conducting an internet search and type in your relevant terms, employer systems are designated to do the same. So success will be based on your resume having relevant keywords. Now, this is also applicable to any professional profiles you create online for job searches. So how do you know what keywords to use? You want to examine the job posting and description for unique keywords and phrases specific to that job. A tip is you can even copy and paste the job description into a free online word cloud creating service like Wordle.net or Word It Out. And the larger the words appear in that cloud, the more times it appears in the job description. These words are certainly significant to the employer and are more important for you to build into your resume. Also, simple formatting is going to help get your resume through. This can be hard to take for those with a creative flair or a graphical inclination. That's not me, but you'll also likely cringe at the sight of your stripped down resume and think that it won't gain any attention, but that's okay when submitting online. Many applicant tracking systems and electronic processors strip out the formatting anyways, so avoid graphic lines, tables, and using the header or footer function. Keep in mind, the average recruiter spends 6 seconds reviewing a resume. They are scanning, not reading. Looking for job areas are going to include the job title, employers, start end dates, and your education certifications. So top tips for online interviews. The interviewer will be thinking of 4 questions when they interview you. Why have you applied? How competent are you? Do you fit the team culture? And can we afford you? You don't want the virtual part of the interview to throw off how qualified you are, so you want to make sure you prepare like it's a regular interview. You can't just pull out your cell phone in the car for the interview. And trust me, it's happened. First, you want to practice with the platform. Preparing for an online interview is, for the most part, prepping the technology. First off, you need to practice with the platform and familiarize yourself. You want to make sure you know how to turn the camera and mic on so you aren't hunting and pecking around while the interviewers are watching. Also, you want to check your lighting and camera placement. Ideally, you want the camera to be head on so you're looking directly or as close as possible in the eyes of the interviewer and not down on them. They don't want to be looking up your nose. You want to make sure that your lighting is good. It isn't casting any shadows across your face. If you have glasses, try to adjust the lighting to minimize the glare. Remember, it's always hard to read body language, and facial expressions are one of them. Good lighting can help them see your facial expressions better. And you also want to make sure you have a good background and not something that's very distracting. Then on top of the technical stuff, you'll have the normal interview prep. And I want to give you a few tips in regards to prepping for the interview. You want to research the organization prior to your interview. In a recent poll of ag HR professionals and hiring managers, they said that one of the best ways for candidates to stand out was by researching the organization before interactions. This is something that hasn't changed from in-person to virtual. Get to know the organization. Employers still want to know that you've explored and learned a bit about their organization before getting into an in-depth conversation. Find out all you can about the company via their website, social media, news coverage. Companies are proud of their history, and they'll get offended if you haven't done the research. Perfect example, I was working with a 70-year-old family-owned company, and the candidate I was working with knew it was family-owned, but never really mentioned it in the interview. And when I spoke to the hiring manager, they noted that they felt like the candidate hadn't done their research, and they were kind of upset about it. So it just goes to show you need to highlight those type of things. It's going to demonstrate your initiative and desire to learn, and it's a good way to maybe lead off the conversation with something you've learned to set a positive tone. You also want to have your materials in front of you. I am a paper person. I'm still going to have some of my stuff printed out ahead of time. And you want to make sure that you have your resume, job description, and a pen and paper with questions in front of you. If they reference something on your resume, you want to have that right in front of you so you can answer any questions immediately and not be clicking around to find it. Before the interview, you'll want to read over the job description and know where you bring your strengths to what they're looking for, and try to highlight those as you're being questioned. Be sure to come prepared with questions either about the job or the company. Do not rely on coming up with questions during the interview. You need to have backups. And remember, you are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. You want to make sure that you get your questions answered about the company and the job. Now, a couple pointers for the opening question. If they say, tell us about yourself, this part can be rehearsed and it needs to last around 4 minutes. Make sure all information is relevant to that job. Don't scroll on them, and draw out the key points you would like for them to know. Self-reflection is also a great key. Do this ahead of time before the interview. And what I mean by that is to think about the highs and lows in your career. This is going to allow you to answer questions like what you feel like are your strengths and weaknesses. And another tip is to be cognizant about your past employers. Do not criticize them or speak negatively about them in any way. This can be a major turnoff for future employers. Lastly, you want to have a backup plan. Going back to the virtual aspect of an interview, you want to be sure that you have a backup plan for connectivity issues. Before the interview starts or as you're scheduling, ask the interviewer what they would like to do for a backup. This could be a phone call. If it is, clarify if you need to call them or they're going to call you, or do they want to just reschedule? Just make sure you know what plan B is. Now treat this interview just as you would in person. Get up, get some coffee, get ready for the day. Don't just roll out of bed. You want to dress the part. Dress just as you would for an interview. Ladies, be sure to watch the neckline on your top. You want to go for something with a higher neckline. And also make sure you don't have a loud print on that can be distracting. Think about your body language. No slouching. Sit upright. Watch your hand gestures so it's not distracting. One of the biggest struggles is to show your excitement, energy through a video interview. Enthusiasm is key to offset the lack of energy that you're missing from that in-person interview. In fact, I've had several clients who tell me that the candidate, quote, lacked energy in an interview, which is typically a sales position. So keep in mind, while being enthusiastic, you want to be sure that you slow down the pace of your speech. This will help make it easier for the interviewers to follow the conversation. Put a sticky note by your camera that says slow to remind you to slow down. Be sure to make eye contact as best as possible. Don't be looking around in your room. It might make them think that there's somebody else there, or you're just distracted and you don't really care. Research shows that employers are more likely to remember what you said if you maintain eye contact. So be sure to keep your eyes focused on the camera, not the screen image of the hiring manager as you converse. And finally, relax, be authentic. I know you're gonna be nervous and it's hard to relax, but take a deep breath and try to enjoy the process as much as you can. Following up with the employers in a virtual environment. As you wrap up the interview, be sure to ask them what are the next steps. This is going to show that you're interested in the job and you want to move forward in the interview process. You're putting the ball in their court. Now, don't be discouraged if they give a vague answer. Sometimes they're going to play their cards close to their chest and say, well, we'll let you know. Don't be discouraged, but the main point of this is that you showed your enthusiasm and your interest in moving forward with the job interviews. Also, be sure that you jotted down each person that was in the interview, and you need to send them a specific thank you note, ideally within 24 hours. If you don't have their emails, reach out to the hiring manager or recruiter that you set the interview up with and ask for their addresses. And when you send those thank yous, reference things that you all spoke about, so it shows that you were paying attention, you picked up on details. It could be about the role, or it could be about a vacation spot you both went to in the past and loved and started talking about. If you have any questions that came up after the interview, now is a good time to ask. Then finally, if you haven't heard back from them within the time frame they specified, send a quick note to the hiring manager. Thank them again for the opportunity and that you were following up to see what the next steps are. Taking the initiative is key when it comes to following up. Hopefully, these tips will make you a little more prepared to navigate your online career search. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend, and if I could be of any assistance to you in your job search or you have any questions, feel free to contact me using the information on this slide. So thank you again, Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. We'd like to all thank Meredith for taking the time to be our presenter today. Thank you all for joining us, and best of luck in your career search.